What is going on, Babylonians? It's me, Songs of Rays, back with another The First Descendant video to be able to bring to you, and today we're going to be covering over Bunny, the one kit that's basically go fast, do damage. Basically, it's all about speed, and it's all about generating electricity to be able to deal even more damage on top of what you can already do. So basically, your resource management is all about how much you move, and you do not want to be in a static kind of playstyle with this. It's basically the opposite of what Jaber is able to offer, and it absolutely wipes the floor with ad clearing. But when it comes to like bosses, it kind of falls down a little bit, not like fully or anything like that, but definitely it's more noticeable compared to something like a really high DPS target like Glay. So before we go any further, make sure you have dropped a like and subscribe on the video. It really does help the channel out. And did you know that we are partnered with Player Ammo, your one-stop shop for your gaming supplement needs? Make sure you use code BABBLE at the checkout to be able to save yourself a juicy 10%. And with all that out of the way, let's get right into it. Alright, so first and foremost, we need to have a check out of Bunny's kit to be able to better understand how this all kind of synergizes, how it all comes together, and to be able to understand where all this DPS is going to be coming from. So if we go into our inventory and we go across to our Descendant, we're able to have a quick look into all the skills and like a quick overview in terms of their stats. So they are primarily directed towards having max MP over HP, and that's the reason why is because we will need a lot of MP to be able to do a lot of the abilities that Bunny is able to offer. Now, the best part about this MP though is that when you kill small targets or anything like that, when you're actually wiping the floor with them, you are able to because of how quick you are to be able to pick up all the MP drops that will be pretty much on the floor. So you will be an MP hog in that sense, but you will be able to keep your abilities going for the longest periods when it comes to that. So let's have a look at the active skills then. So the first and foremost is going to be a DPS kind of option, and this is going to be called Electro Orb. What this has is a cost of 50 MP, which is quite costly, but it has a cooldown of 5 seconds, so you can do this over and over again if you're able to reduce the cost and be able to have your MP stacked up high enough. What this does is summon an electric orb to be able to attack the 6 closest enemies within a 13-meter radius, with physical attack times 53.2%, electric attack times 1% damage, and inflict electrocution effect. We'll cover the electrocution shortly, but the electric attack plus 19 is added to the damage, and this damage is increased by owned electricity times 0.1%. When it comes to electrocution, Bunny's electrocution effect inflicts physical attack times 22.1%, electric attack times 1% constant damage every 1 second for 3 seconds, and then electric attack plus 19 is added to the constant damage. All of this is being able to build up your electricity to be able to do even more damage when it comes to the skills. So we'll cover that when it comes right now with the passive skill. We're going to mix it up a little bit because it doesn't make sense to be able to go through everything else without having a look at what this is all about. So with Dynamo, which is the passive skill, what this will do is it will charge electricity by maximum electricity times 2% for every 1 meter that's moved. 2.5 seconds after you stop moving, electricity is consumed by maximum electricity by 15% per 1 second, so you're basically losing 15% of your max electricity every single 1 sec. So basically, if you stop still, you are going to lose a lot of your resource to be able to gather it back. Upon hitting the ground after a double jump, this inflicts physical attack times 0.3%, electric attack times 20% damage to enemies within a 4-meter radius, and electric attack plus 20 is added to the damage. So when it comes to this, you have an additional way to be able to do it. It's almost like a separate skill in effect. So when you use your double jump, when you land, you're able to do a small radius around yourself in terms of being able to inflict even more damage to enemies that are nearby to yourself. And also the electricity is, the more electricity you have, the more damage you're going to be dealing with all of your skills. So basically just keep moving, get that up to 100% as fast as possible by sprinting, by moving, just basically do not stop. Now, fortunately, this deck gets a lot easier if we go into our second active skill, which is going to be called Joyride. What this is it has a small cost of 6 for MP, and then it has a cooldown of 2 seconds, and what this does is it enters you into a separate mode called Joyride mode. What this means is that you can only use sprint when you're in this, your sprint speed is also increased by 50%, and for every 1 meter moved, you charge an additional electricity by max electricity by 3%, and your Joyride mode consumes max MP times 3.7% per 0.3 seconds. This is going to be the fastest way to be able to build up your electricity. So before any kind of fight, you should really activate Joyride mode. 1, to be able to get in there as quickly as possible, but 2, to be able to get as much electricity and to be able to keep that bar up as high as possible. By the time you get into a fight, you should easily have anywhere between 20 to 25% at a minimum to be able to go straight into a fight. And if it's even longer, you can then have even more damage on top of that. Now this is going to make a great combination when we go into our next ability, which is going to be called Pulse pulsar. This is where the main kind of like shine of Bunny kind of comes into effect, and if you've played the beta at all, then you'll have seen the combination that this can get up to. What this does is it has a cost of 266 MP, which I think is a bit wrong. I feel like that's I don't think we have enough MP to be able to use that, if that's the case, so I feel like that's a bit of a typo, but your cooldown is 22 seconds, and what this does is it puts you into pulsar mode for 20 seconds. For every 6 meters that you move, you inflict physical attack times 21%, electric attack times 1% damage, and electrocutes enemies within an 8 meter radius, and your electric attack at plus 19 is added to the damage, and it increases by owned electricity times 0.5%. The electrocution effect basically is just a little bit more damage over time, and you'll have seen the exact same thing on the ore. So this is where it's going to be like just additional damage while you've ran past them. So what happens is with this ability is that you're using Joyride to be able to increase your speed, you're using it to be able to increase the amount of electricity that you have stored in your character to be able to do even more damage, and then you can use this to be able to not even have to engage with the enemies. What you can do is just run straight in between them all, or just nearby, and then the area of effect and the skill damage will deal with all those enemies for you. Now this doesn't really do too much when it comes to like the raid bosses or anything like that. It does have a little bit of difficulty being able to do a lot of damage to those, but what it will do is if you're doing like consecutive defense or you're doing any kind of like round-based survival mode, it will easily take care of most of the armies in that, and at least until probably like the later rounds, so I'd probably say like 15, 16, you can mostly wipe them out in one or two activations of this ability, and this will stay active for 20 seconds. Now I will cover this a little bit more in the runes, but it is worthwhile noticing that there is a small gap between the cooldown and going and how long pulsar mode will last for, but we'll cover that very shortly in the runes, and we'll explain how to be able to get the best out of that as well. Just know that pulsar, when it comes to ad clearing, pulsar and Joyride are going to be your best bet, and there's some of the best abilities in the game in being able to deal with a massive group of enemies all at the same time. Lastly, we have Circuit Breaker, and Circuit Breaker has 0 cost, but it does have a cooldown of 47 seconds, so this is kind of lengthy, but what this does is shoot out your electricity forward and inflict constant damage of physical attack times 27%, electric attack times 1%, and electric attack plus 19 is added to the constant damage, and this can increase up to 275% in proportion to skill duration. What this does is it consumes 5.3% of your maximum electricity every 1 second, and the skill ends when the electricity runs out. This is what you're working your way up to be able to do high amounts of DPS when it comes to single target. So if you are looking for your boss killing, if you are going into those raid bosses for example, what you want to be able to do is use your Joyride to be able to get as much electricity as possible. If you can get to 100%, even better, and what this means is that you can then activate this ability to be able to do a huge chunk of portion of damage, but you will be fairly static when it comes to this. You can move, you can still strafe side to side, you can still move forward and backwards and all that kind of thing, but compared to what your mobility was before, you are very limited, and it will mean that you will probably take a couple of hits. So it is worthwhile going into HP and into defense when it comes playing as Bunny, because you are putting yourself in the thick of the fight. Overall, I find this really effective when it comes to some of the raid bosses, but just know that obviously if you don't have that defense, if you don't have the endurance, you will pretty much get wiped straight away, and you'll become more of a hindrance to your team than you will be a benefit. But if you can like tank a couple of hits to be able to get this ability off and to be able to keep the attack going and everything like that, then you will do a decent chunk of damage every single time you activate this ability. So going from there, let's have a quick look into the runes. Now, when it comes to the best guns, now similar to like how we've discussed before, in your skill attack or your physical attack is based on the weapon that you are currently holding. Primarily, you do want to be able to get yourself a launcher or a sniper rifle with a really high base attack to be able to feed into all of your abilities, but you can still get away with using other guns as well. What I will say is that the only difference between this and compared to another video where I would recommend that is that your speed is impacted by what weapon you are currently equipping. If you are holding a pistol, you're at the fastest that you can move. If you are holding an SMG, you're still a little bit slower, but you still have really good movement speed. But if you do use a launcher or a sniper rifle, you will have some very slow movement speed in comparison. So that means that things like pulsar, things like your electricity won't generate as quickly as possible to be able to then feed into the rest of your ability. So just keep that in mind. If you do have plenty of time or plenty of space to be able to like maximize the amount of skill attack and all that kind of thing, and then you can still run around, then by all means equip a sniper rifle, equip a rocket launcher to be able to do the massive amount of damage that you can do with your skills. But alternatively, you can still get away with both pistols and SMGs, and shotguns are also a great shout as well, so just keep an eye out for any kind of weapon that's along those lines. In terms of like runes for those kind of things, you do want to be able to boost up the attack, and what we'll do is we'll cover the sniper rifle similar to how we've done it. So Thunder or Strengthened First Shot is also a great one to be able to go for, because that gives you a nice 30% increase after you've done a reload. So fire a bullet, be able to reload yourself, and then you now have a very nice 30% increase on top of what you were going to be doing. And also going for your attack up is also going to increase your base attack as well, and that will feed into your abilities as well. When it comes to the Descendant runes, you do want to go for skill attack. You also want to go for, well, skill cost is also going to be a big one for this one, but you also want to go for some endurance. Bunny is very dependent on the runes, and you do need to be able to build her quite well in this regard. In terms of better defense, this is always a great one to be able to go for first and foremost for every single one of the Descendants, so I highly recommend that you do grab yourself one of those, and then you also want to be able to grab yourself things that affect your skills. So Maximise Power is there to be able to increase the amount of damage that we will be doing with our skills. Skill Extension is a great one, and the reason why we've got this and we haven't booted it up is because this is more than enough to be able to handle the skills. If I go back to the Pulsar ability, you'll notice that there is a 2-second gap between how long the ability is active for and how long the cooldown is. Funnily enough, this is exactly 10%, so therefore if we put 10% on our duration to be able to take that mode from 20 seconds to 22 seconds, we now have an 100%, well, just it's always active, basically. So therefore, just having something like this, just for 4 points to be able to allow you to be able to always have Pulsar active, is definitely worthwhile in my opinion. In terms of other things, we got skill MP cost. This is also a great one to be able to start leveling up, because not only does Joyride use your MP, you've also got your Pulsar that also uses your MP, you've got your Lightning Orb that also uses your MP, and the more you can reduce that down, the longer you can keep in those modes, so therefore I do recommend that you do grab one of those. And skill integration is just there for the big skill attack increase, and then we've also got shield conversion MP, because our shield isn't too viable when it comes to this. We've primarily gone straight into HP, so therefore we can reduce our shield a little bit to be able to get some more max MP, and that allows us to be able to have a little bit more freedom when it comes to some of our skill usage. In terms of tips and tricks, there's not too many to really, when it comes to Bunny. It's kind of obvious as soon as you really pick her up, but the first and foremost one that I will say is when you go into Pulsar mode, just know that even though the area of effect of it is it's relatively big, but just know that when it comes to vertically, it's almost endless. You can be double jumped above enemies at quite a distance, and that will still hit enemies that are below you. So therefore, you can use things like double jump to be able to make sure that you can you don't run into enemies, to be able to slow yourself down. You can consistently keep that speed going, and then you're also hitting them for all that damage as well. Also, just be mindful of teammates, because crashing into any enemies or any teammates is pretty detrimental to your playstyle, because you want to consistently be running, and if you do run into a teammate or an enemy when you are in the running mode, then, or in Joyride, sorry, then you're still costing yourself that MP, because it's more down to time, rather than you're not really gaining anything because you're not moving anywhere. So make sure to use your jumps, make sure to use your double jumps as well. Double jumps is just free damage as well if you do land it on enemies, and yeah, your main combination is always going to be your Joyride and your Pulsar mode. And there you go, that is everything that we've currently learned from Bunny. I think she's a great character to be able to play with, but I don't necessarily consider her to be like endgame viable when it comes to like raid bosses. I do think she's absolutely amazing when it comes to consecutive defense, but I think she needs a little bit more to be able to help her out, especially in that electricity department for that number 4 skill. But overall, she's got a great kit. She's a lot of fun to be able to play around with, and I definitely recommend that you give her a go. Massive thank you for making your way to the end of the video. Massive thank you to the Babylonian family, as always, for their continued support. Their names appear at the end of every single one of our videos. Did you know we have our own Discord server? So make sure you click that link that's found in the video description below to be able to get yourselves over there, and we'd love to be able to discuss any videos that we do on the channel or anything else that you feel like is mentioning. But yeah, that just leaves me to say, keep yourself safe, keep yourselves well, and I'll see you all on that next video.